Ceancorla agus a híisi banna má ceist an le atro éráide agus go hárid an cinenne a thug an cuairt uachtarach an lá dearannach de mí úl agus sa bhreithúna sin dúrú go raibh an plán sin an Climate Mitigation Plan go raibh sé míad leachach go hárid ó híomh na dúlgais a bhí an rialtas plán a legan amach ag cholíonú na dúlgaisí a bhí an rialtas faoin bon reachtaíoch 2015. Taoiseach, significantly on this very date, on the 9th of May last year, we declared a climate emergency. And we did that for very good reason, because challenges don't capture what we're facing in terms of climate change. And you yourself have recognised that in your programme for government, where you talk about the importance of transformational change. The year that we declared the emergency, the Climate Advisory Council told us in blunt terms, and it's a body I'll come back to because of the lack of gender representation, but it told us in blunt terms that we would fail as a country and as a government to meet our obligations, notwithstanding the catastrophe that we're facing in 2020 and in 2030. And then on the 31st of July this year, Mr Justice Clark, Chief Justice, delivered a unanimous 7-court judgment in the climate case taken by the Friends of the Environment. And let me pay tribute to them. They weren't objectors, they were very concerned citizens and residents of this country. In that judgment, the Supreme Court quashed the government's National Mitigation Plan. He outlined that Section 4 of the 2015 Act required the mitigation plan to be specific, and that the purpose of requiring the plan to be specific was to allow any interested member of the public, and I repeat, any interested member of the public to know enough about the government, to know enough about how the government currently intends to meet the national transition objective by 2050, so as to inform the views of the reasonable and interested member of the public as to whether that policy was considered effective and appropriate. Now, you've made the argument repeatedly, and I agree with it, and you made it in court, that this is a living document. And the court accepted that, but went on to say, notwithstanding that it's a living document, it seems reasonable to me, and this is the Chief Justice, to characterise significant parts of the policies as being excessively vague and aspirational. And they go on to quash that plan. So we've no mitigation plan since the 31st of July, when the Supreme Court quashed it. And my question to you today is, what have you done about that? Please don't tell me you're coming back with an action plan or a climate plan within the next 100 days. You may do that, and I welcome it, but that's not your obligation following this judgment. It's the mitigation plan. And I'll come back in relation to gender equality and the Climate Advisory Council.
Well, Oireachtas got on cinenne sin a dhéanann cuairt uachtarach cinenne darfach táchtach gan áras agus caithimid na sa rialtas clí leis an cinenne sin agus ceachtainna a álam gan áras agus mar is óldút tá sé an gealúntas táchtaí don rialtas nua ná bille cuimseach leider ó thaobh cuasaí a ráide a chuir a bhaim. So the impact of that Supreme Court judgment obviously has been assessed by government. Lessons have to be learned, obviously, from the entire judgment itself and what the Chief Justice has to say, and has been taken very seriously by government. The new government made it clear as one of the key pillars of its programme for government was climate change more generally, and particularly, yes, the publication of a climate bill within 100 days. That is important. Obviously, work has to also commence in terms of a mitigation plan. And I know that Minister Eamon Ryan in particular will be addressing a range of these issues. If you have issues, and I think also he will take on board any submissions you have to make, particularly in terms of gender, in terms of the Climate Change Council. And essentially, the issue around the absence of specifics is one that has to be addressed in any new plans and new legislation. And we obviously, when a judgment of that significance is articulated by the court and decided upon by the Supreme Court, it does fall on government to give that the deepest of analysis and assessment. And we will do that, both in the context of the National Mitigation Plan, but also more widely in terms of climate legislation itself, because very significant commitments have been made in the programme for government around climate, and we're determined that we would match those commitments with specifics and with clear timelines.
Thank you, Taoiseach. I don't know if you realise the significance of the judgment. The mitigation plan has been declared invalid by the highest court in the land. It's beyond learning lessons. It's acknowledging that the plan was utterly defective and telling us a timescale for the new plan. Under the 2015 Act, there's a particular process of consultation. So please tell me what steps have been taken, when will the National Mitigation Plan be published, and what is the date for its enactment? In relation to the Climate Advisory Council, let me tell you that there are 2 female members out of 11. In relation to the Adaptation Committee, there are 2 female members out of 10. That's totally unacceptable. In relation to your programme for government, I've looked at it and I have it here in front of me in relation to the aspects that pertain to this question. I couldn't disagree with your language. It's wonderful language. Transformative action, facing the challenges, learning from COVID, not going back. I couldn't agree with you more, but the message going out on a daily basis is quite contrary to that. Because of COVID, you're saying, don't go on public transport. You're actively advising us not to go on public transport. In relation to Galway, you've utterly failed to respond to 24,000 people begging you, imploring you to do at the most basic a feasibility study on light rain to fit in with your national plan. I'm very conscious of time, Ceann Comhairle, I won't go over.
First of all, I think I do get the profound nature of the judgment. Of course I do. Government's only in office 2 months, 3 months. And, we're going to deal with these issues. And of course COVID has changed the norm. Of course it has. When you say we're saying don't go on public transport, public health is saying that. Public health is saying that, is advising us. And there was a view in this House that we adhered to the broad thrust of public health advice. But we hope we'll get through COVID and that COVID will pass. And obviously public transport will have a key role in how society is organised into the future, and the government is very committed to public transport, and Minister Eamon Ryan in particular is. And he's very committed to light rail. Very committed to that. And he was in Galway recently, I think last week, and engaging with people. Eamon Ryan is committed to light rail, and I don't see him having any difficulty in committing with a feasibility study. He wants to accelerate light rail proposals and initiatives across the country. And I will talk to him in relation to the Galway situation. You have said he has refused. I don't... But you've made a comment, and I just maybe could get clarification. You actually said that he had refused a feasibility study on light rail.
Has been refused. If I put it badly, I apologise.
Well, yeah,
I beg your pardon, you asked me to clarify. I raised it repeatedly with the previous Transport Minister.
Well, that's the previous Transport Minister. Minister Eamon Ryan is the current.
Thank you very much. I'm aware of that.
Well, then we shouldn't be making such declarations. I think we should give him the benefit of the doubt.
It has been refused repeatedly.
Well, I'd say to you anyway that Minister Eamon Ryan, from my conversations with him, is an enthusiast for light rail. Okay? And he's an enthusiast for public transport.
And a feasibility study.
Except taxis. Time is up.
But could I just, on the gender issue, point well made, and I think the climate bill will create opportunities in respect of, I presume, in terms of the configuration of what emerges from that legislation in terms of agencies and councils and so on.
Thank you very much.